An active bye week, the 5 biggest weasels from that week involving AzeezAl-Shaair, plus a question about CJ Stroud that might make you think. Let's have some bye week fun here in the locker room.
Yeah.
Do it live!
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city.
One of the worst statements of the week. I think we know who the biggest weasel from this week is involving the AzeezAl-Shaair, but he's not alone. He has some company. We'll list the 5 in a sec. It is the locker room, #1 source for Texans digital content. It's the bye week, but the content doesn't stop. Matter of fact, the content's kind of intensified. We also added a new YouTube channel to go with the most popular Texans podcast in the land, the collaboration that's been going on all year between myself and Cody Stutes. Please subscribe to that in the comments. We're pushing 1,000 just 3 days after dropping it. We would much appreciate you for riding along. It doesn't cost you anything, and you get the best Texans content possible. It's been a weird bye week. Most of the dialogue around Al-Shaair has been somewhat amusing, to say the least. I know that eventually the story is going to go away, but when it's one of the top stories in the NFL and it's also a Texan story and they don't have a game, you're going to talk about it a lot. By the way, this segment, this show is sponsored by BetUS. Go to BetUS, type in YouTube 150. If you want to get in the game, you'll get 150% bonus back, up to $2,000. I'm on fire right now. I actually lost a $100 parlay yesterday because Jordan Love didn't throw a touchdown, but we started the season with 2,000. We're up to 3,700. We got 3,283 available to play, and then we have 50 on a parlay for tomorrow, and then we have 400 on the Titans -3.5 against the Jags. So I'm betting on the Titans. That's how little I think of the Jags right now. And then we have the CJ Stroud, Diggs, and Danielle Hunter props. So that is where we are at right now. We might try to follow some money in a second. But first, let's just get right into this. And be sure to subscribe, like, right along. Best Texans coverage in the country. The top 5. J-Rock says he's hope y'all are getting right with that high grade
marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Always. So the top 5 biggest weasels are most amusing folks from this Al-Shaair thing is pretty interesting. I would say that #1, because I'm not a homer. I cover the team as best I can. I cover the team as close to the situation as I possibly can, but it's not gang for me. I want the Texans to do well. I want Demeco Ryans to do well, but if they're not playing well, and if something's not going right, and if there's context clues, we're going to have to call it out. So the number 5 most amusing person this week with the Al-Shaair thing is Demeco Ryans. Demeco, how in the hell are you going to say that the Jags overreacted? Come on, coach.
Anything from the league office regarding a possible suspension from Azeez, and do you have anything to add on that?
No, with the entire Azeez, situation, we stand behind Azeez and everything, that came from that. Of course, he unfortunately hit on the quarterback, but it's also it's twofold, right? I mean, a lot of the quarterbacks in this day and age, they try to take advantage of the rule where they slide late and they try to get an extra yard. And now you're a defender, a lot of onus is on the defender, right? Whether it's on the sideline or where it's on the quarterback, you don't know what a guy's thinking. You don't know if a guy's staying up and he's continuing to run. You don't know. And then you get a late slide and you hit the guy. Unfortunate that Trevor got hurt.
With all that.
Hope Trevor is okay, but it's also, if we're sliding, we have to get down. If we're getting out of bounds, we get out of bounds. And that rule is there to protect the quarterbacks. And we want our quarterbacks to be safe in the league. So we just have to be safe. If we're sliding, make sure we're keeping our heads down. So, and the entire thing is, Azeez, hits the guy, but their sideline overreacts, and it turns into a melee. It wasn't our guys; it's their team overreacted, pushed our guy, dragging our guy to the sideline. So that's uncalled for on that side. We have to be better on the sidelines as well with both teams.
All right, there you go. So that's Demeco Ryans. Demeco Ryans, number 5 on the most amusing people list. He is there on the comments. Someone says Stephen A. Stephen A. I don't listen to anything Stephen A. says about the Texans. Like it's not even on my radar to even listen to what Stephen A. has to say about the Texans. I don't dispute that he's a legend. I don't dispute that it's hard to have takes about everything. I think he deserves every penny that he gets. But as far as the Texans go, I don't listen to a word he says with the crap he pulled during the hiring process. So Stephen A. Smith doesn't count. He's not even eligible for the whole thing. This looks like a bot. It has to be. You still talking about this? It's over. Yeah, it's a big story. It's the top story in football, and we're recapping what happened this week. So, yeah, it's – and they don't have a game, and there's no bye. So, there you go. Nathan's saying let's move on. You don't have to watch this one. I would like for you to, but we're just recapping the biggest story that the Texans have had all season long during a bye week. You can move on. No problem for that. Mad Dog Russo also not eligible. I don't even think Mad Dog Russo watches football. I think he only watches baseball. But the Demeco thing, I think that was an appropriate reaction. So Demeco is number 5, but he's also a defensive-minded guy. I'm almost wondering, like, if this was kind of symbolic of what we've seen all year, where the offense is like not on the same path as the defense. Demeco's got to do a better job there. That wasn't good from a PR standpoint or his own. Number 4, most amusing group / people from this whole thing was the Arik Armstead thing. I mean, Arik Armstead's good friends with AzeezAl-Shaair. He played for Demeco, and he simply liked to post. And the amusing thing about this is he has to address this at the front of his media. By the way, he looks like he's on that
high-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
But notice afterwards, they ask him about him being a 6-time nominee for Walter Payton Man of the Year and the Jags rep. Here's Arik Armstead. Whoever, whether it was media, whether it was people, whoever forced him to have to do this, number 4.
Talking about me liking Azeez's post. And, I think it's I wanted to address that because just what everyone was, everyone has their opinions. First off, I love Trevor. He's a great teammate, great player, great person. And what happened? I don't
know about a great
seeing
player.
him getting injured was terrible. You never want to see that happen to a teammate of yours. And also too, Azeez is a great friend of mine. We were locker mates for 4 years, right next to each other. We have a great relationship as well too. And so it was a weird situation for me, for sure, seeing a teammate get injured, but also a friend of mine being in a situation like that. And he was definitely in the wrong, and made a bang play that I wish that could have back, but to see the ridicule and him being ostracized the way he is, and the remarks that people are making about him is also terrible. And I feel like I can support my great teammate Trevor, and also I can support a friend in a rough situation when people are being racist towards him, and a lot of hateful things being said about him. I know his character. He's a good dude. And I talked to him and told him that what he did was wrong, or he made a mistake. But that's what happens when you're sometimes in a football game. So just wanted to address that first. That
Sad you had to, bud.
I spoke with both of them.
Sad you had to, my friend.
Too, if you saw the like or whatever people were talking about, and me and him spoke about it, and me and him are good as well too. And he completely understands it. It was good to have a conversation with him and check on him too, and see how he was doing. So yeah, just getting that out there.
And then I guess to move forward from that, just how does it feel to be nominated for Walter Payton Man of the Year? I know you've been nominated 4 other times with the other
Oh, by the way, you're a hell of a guy in this whole locker room that people are crapping on you for. You're the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and this is nothing new to you because you've been nominated a number of other times. But thank you very much for talking about liking your friend's post. Thank you very much. So number 4, whoever the hell it was, I don't know. Whoever the hell did that. Number 3, most amusing person in this Al-Shaair thing. Be sure to subscribe to SNL, by the way. It is the locker room, number 1 source for Texans digital content. Jay France in the comments. He is swarming the comments.
Swarm.
Some defensive guys on podcasts talking Trevor slid late. Richard Sherman, Zaire Franklin agree this was a difficult and unfortunate play. I agree with that. I think the suspension's fine. I'm not anti-suspension, but I agree with that. Like from a defensive point of view, it's a lot to ask. Like it's a hell of a lot to ask. I think the extra stuff after, I think the previous stuff kind of came into play. I don't think Demeco helped his cause, but yeah, that's well documented that is tough. Number 3, biggest goofballs / weasels in this whole thing. Trey Wingo. Trey Wingo used to be on ESPN. Now he does 33rd team, I think. Trevor Lawrence was placed on injured reserve, and Trey Wingo said his season ended by an illegal hit that led to a fine, ejection, and suspension. Why should Al-Shaair be allowed to return before Trevor can? What kind of, like, honestly, if, and maybe some Texans fans feel this way, like Joe Mixon had to miss a lot of time because of a drop ankle tackle. I don't think the guy who did that deserves to miss 3 or 4 weeks. Like when someone tears their ACL on like a dirty hit or something, does that mean they have to miss as much time? Trey Wingo must have like some cabin fever or be bored or something like that. Because that was totally goofy. So Trey Wingo comes in at number 3, but he's not the biggest goofball. This guy could easily be number 1, and this is one of those guys who, I don't know what he does. He tries to host a little bit, and it's very awkward. He's obviously a nerd who just sits in his basement, or I don't know, basement in his house, and aggregates the league, which I'll be honest, I don't minimize. I appreciate. I think he does a good job of putting information out there. As much as we complain about aggregators, they put out a lot of good information. They do a good job of archiving the league. So I'm not just completely dismissing it. But Ari, the awkward aggregator, a.k.a. AAA, Ari, awkward aggregator, this is pathetic because Trey Wingo wasn't even alone. And it's one thing to have this take, but wait till you see what AAA, Ari, the awkward aggregator, did later on today. So this was his original tweet. Trevor Lawrence will miss at least 4 games due to the concussion he suffered, why AzeezAl-Shaair received a 3-game suspension and is appealing to have it reduced. We may never know. So he says that. He says it factually in the first sentence. Trevor Lawrence will miss at least 4 games due to the concussion he suffered. Then he says this. We may never know if Lawrence needed 4 games to recover from the hit or if the Jaguars are simply shoving him with their season already over. However, officially, the player who got hit will miss more time than the player who delivered the hit. So this is where you've just established yourself as a dick piece slime ball. Because, first of all, you're saying something that anyone with common sense knows isn't there. And again, I'm fine with the suspension. I'm not even like a Texans flag carrier. I'm fine with the suspension. I don't like the way the extra stuff was handled. But you're presenting that as fact in one. Then you're saying we may never know if Lawrence truly needed 4 games to recover from the hit. Well, first of all, he has an effed up shoulder that requires surgery. Second of all, they have the first pick in the draft. So there's context clues there. Tell me when the last time someone missed 4 weeks for a concussion was. Was it Tua? So he says that, and then he tries to act like he has like some sort of integrity and says we may never know. Well, guess what, AAA? We do know now. We found out today. And let's see how this weasel handled it today. Here you go. Here was his tweet today. Ari Marov. He said, Doug Peterson, and this is in response to an actual quote, and you can see Stutes right there. Doug Peterson clarified today that QB Trevor Lawrence, who remains in the concussion protocol, was placed on IR because of his previous shoulder injury as well. Peterson explained that the decision was made based on the team's record. Lawrence played with the shoulder injury last week when they were 2-9. Okay, so he's saying that Doug Peterson clarified today that Trevor Lawrence, who remains in the concussion protocol, was placed on IR because of his previous shoulder injury as well. I saw the quotes, but this is kind of what I always do whenever I watch a press conference, whenever I react to a press conference. I go back and watch whole press conferences. And I know that's dirty as hell, but as someone who partakes in these press conferences, I think you got to get some context. The quote I saw said that Doug Peterson said that he was on IR because of the shoulder and because of where they are record-wise. Ari Myrov said as well. He said as well. Let's pull this up one more time. We're going to hear from Doug Peterson too. He said as well. He said, clarified today that Trevor Lawrence, who remains in concussion protocol, was placed on IR because of his previous shoulder injury as well. Let's hear what the guy actually said. And this is where you go from just being an aggregator to someone who, A, probably shouldn't have opinions, and B, damn sure shouldn't pose as a journalist. Because you straight up started this off by saying, we may never know. Well, we know because the coach said. And you would have known if you would have had common sense. He ain't missing 4 weeks with the concussion. Not to minimize concussions, that ain't it. He's got a hurt shoulder. But let's hear the actual quote from Doug Peterson, and you're really going to realize what a goofy slime ball this guy is. This is where you know you're a scumbag. He said that he was on IR because of the concussion and that. That's what he said. Here you go.
You know, his health is probably the most important. Obviously, the reason for IR is not you know, the injury from Sunday. It's not that. It's more the shoulder. But you know, it's obviously
say that again.
It's not that. It's more the shoulder. Sunday. It's not that. It's the injury from Sunday. It's not you know, for IR is not. It is not. He said he's not on IR for what? You know, the injury from Sunday. It's not that. It's more the shoulder. But you know, it's obviously, you know, listen, where we are in our season.
There you go. So he came out and flat out said that it was not the concussion. And this little weasel scumbag who decided he was going to have an opinion instead of just aggregating, which he does a great job of. After that gets proven and the coach actually says what common sense would have said, he doubles down. Was he just too lazy to look up the actual quote? Because the actual quote was very clear in written form. It's even more clear there. If Doug Peterson had said he's going to shave his nuts and throw it against the wall, Ari Myrov would have had that clip up in a second. But the second there is a clip that refutes your original opinion, you sit there and you passive-aggressively double down. That's what a twerp, nerdy weasel does. Twerp, nerdy weasel. That is awful. And I appreciate the work that he does. I see his stuff all the time, but that is garbage. And that's why that's the difference between actually being a real media type and even really being an aggregator. A lot of these aggregators don't even have opinions. They just misrepresent headlines. You straight up ignored an actual quote. And it's days after you said we may never know. He just told you, buddy. You said your opinion and then you said we may never know. And you found out via the quote and you worded it to where the concussion had something to do with it too when the coach said it didn't. What's that about? That's weird. That's just weird. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Like, what is the payoff for that? He's not the biggest weasel in this thing, though. That guy's job is to spread as much information as possible. Nobody holds that guy to journalistic standards, regardless of how much I rant and rave about it. I thought that was a twerpy, nerdy display by him. But nobody holds him to journalistic standards, and he doesn't even hold himself to that. He got a lot of reaction and stuff, so that's fine. But at least he's not a corporate suit like Jon Runyan is. Jon Runyan, paragraph 3, was one of the worst things that I've seen from someone in a league office. Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values, blah, 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 blah. Jon Runyan, the weasel, number one weasel. Just insane. Just don't know what's going on there. There's some wild stuff going on around this league. Kind of is what it is. But that's the reaction to the Al-Shaair thing. We'll see what happens. Texans will be back on the field next week. We got a hell of a weekend of pigskin ahead of us, and it's going to be really, really fun. So we'll see how this whole thing goes. Let's look at the Bet US lines. I already put 400 on the 400 on the Titans this week, -3.5. Don't ask me why. Just kind of felt like the thing to do. Let's get a little prop builder here. This will be my bet tomorrow. The long shot parlay. We got 32.83, so we'll make this an $83 parlay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go NCAA football. We're going to go Iowa State at Arizona State. We're going to take Iowa State point total over 24.5. We're going to take Georgia, Texas. We're going to take passing TDs. We're going to take Carson Beck over. Then we're going to go down to Penn State, Oregon. We're going to take Oregon. And we're going to put $83 on that to win 601. So Iowa State over 24.5. Carson Beck over 1.5 touchdowns. And Oregon to win. And they're going to limit me to $16. They don't want me robbing them too bad. They must not feel good about that bet. So 16 to win, 116. You can go to Bet US, YouTube 150. If you want to get in the action and get in the game. And I'm sure some other stuff will come up. And we'll see how that goes. Gustavo, swarm in the soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm. Do you think any players or staff are going to get fined by the NFL? Caserio might. Not sure, though. Caserio might. I don't know if he deserves it, though. But who knows? CJ Stroud question. There was a lot of Detroit Lions jealousy yesterday. It seems like every time Texans fans watch like an elite squad, there's jealousy. There's natural jealousy. You want to be playing at that type of level. You want to be the favorite to win the conference and get into the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of Detroit Lions envy. I'll be serious. Like the only thing the thing that is preventing the Texans from getting there, first of all, they're earlier in their process. They're halfway through where Dan Campbell was. It's 2 years to 4, but they need offensive skill position talent. That's the biggest difference. They need the same year that the Texans got Nico Collins, the Lions got Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then they got Jamison Williams, they got Gibbs, they got Laporta, and they have an offensive coordinator who can call plays. That's the difference. Like now it's time to focus on the offense and get the quarterback some weapons. So that's where Detroit is. People are asking like, what do you do to get there? I saw Seth Payne said that. Shout out to Seth. They need offensive talent. The offensive talent outside of wide receiver 1 and RB1. We talked about this earlier in the week on SNL, which, by the way, subscribe to the channel if I haven't said that 100 times already. They have it. The Texans don't. Other thing is, you got to wonder like if Demeco can delegate appropriately the offensive and defensive responsibilities, because we know he has the defense on lock. We know he's a good defensive coach, but we've seen just so many displays and context clues of Demeco being more defense than offense, is he going to be able to oversee whatever is necessary for the offense to get good? I think that's a logical concern. But we'll see how that goes. But I think they need skill position guys. Question I have about CJ Stroud. Someone asked me this the other day, and I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I don't know how to answer that. But the Kansas City Chiefs, we obviously know that the Chiefs have been the class of the NFL. They have Patrick Mahomes. Many people before the season felt that maybe CJ Stroud was going to join that elite company with Allen and with Mahomes, and maybe CJ would be able to get something going there. Hasn't been like an overly awesome year. Shout out to Cornelius. Appreciate you, my friend. J Stag. Just want to hear Busey. You know I'm sub to SNL. My guy. Okay.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Is CJ Stroud more Patrick Mahomes or Alex Smith? Alex Smith was a solid quarterback. Is he closer to Alex Smith or is he closer to Patrick Mahomes? And obviously, you're talking about the best quarterback of all time in Patrick, or one of the best quarterbacks of all time in Patrick Mahomes. But is he closer to Alex Smith or is he closer to Patrick Mahomes? I know coming out of the draft, there was some comparisons to Jared Goff, and those were almost looked at as like insulting. Goff's playing pretty well now, and he has a lot around him. But I just thought that was an interesting question. Because Patrick Mahomes, no matter who he has around him, they find ways to win. Maybe that's about building a culture, establishing stuff, and we're also talking about a GOAT. I thought it was an interesting question. Maybe the Goff comparisons weren't so bad. If you can get offensive weapons around CJ Stroud like Detroit has, and you can proactively try to do that, like they use the first on Laporta, they use the first on Jameson Williams, the second on Laporta, the first on Jameson, and the first on Gibbs. Maybe the Jared Goff thing wasn't so bad. Who knows? Game manager, game changer, quoting Cam Newton. I see you, Mr. Martinez. Shout out to you, my friend. Before we get out of here, it's going to be a short one. Kind of a little bit under the weather. Someone said something about Christian Harris coming back. Yeah, I mean, he put out the Instagram post, and we've known it was going to be post-buy, so we'll see how it goes there. Subscribe, like, ride along. Subscribe to SNL. Bye week continues. I'm going to go, like, get in the steam room or something like that. I need to get my mind right and get ready for tomorrow. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Thanks for coming through.
We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we